Family finally found Book 3 Forced Perspective. Knuckles cracked his eyes open a narrow slit. His head throbbed, as it had for the past 2 days. Sunlight shone down through the round skylight, bathing the attic in warm, yellow light. It had been 1 month since the battle with Robotnik. For weeks of adjusting to airtime, he should have woken at dawn, but judging from the sun's position it was mid-morning. He sat up, a small grunt rumbling in the back of his throat. The movement didn't help his head itchy any. It thumped harder, and he held his hands to his forehead until it subsided slightly, blinking away the last tendrils of sleep. He looked around. The opening for the attic stairs sat to his left. He slept in the closest corner to them, on a mattress on the floor. The humans had suggested more amenities, a bed, specifically, and a nightstand, but he had refused. A warrior needed no such luxuries. The mattress itself was a compromise, as the woman insisted it was either that, or what she referred to as a bunk bed with the hedgehog. This option seemed akin to torture, as Sonic could snore to wake the dead some nights. Being right above that noise would have driven Knuckles mad. He had chosen this spot as the best defensive position, should an attack occur during the night. The others were more open to a direct assault, based on their positioning in the attic. Sonic slept in a small car-shaped bed on the far side of the attic. To the right, Tails slept in a small bed almost directly across the room from the hedgehog. Anyone coming up the stairs would have a direct line of access to them. Knuckles stayed to the side and almost behind the stairs, a perfect place to launch a surprise attack on any would-be intruder. Their areas were more decorated than his with toys, games, and other childish items. Knuckles cared nothing for such things. To his right sat a small metal chest, a heavy padlock in place on the latch. Inside sat the Master Emerald, the only object he had ever cared about in the entire galaxy. It was finally his. He had found it, and in assuming responsibility for its safety, had restored honor to his fallen tribe. He frowned. That seemed a dishonest way of thinking about it. In truth, it was he who had almost let it fall into the wrong hands. He had been misled and trusted the wrong person, who had used the emerald for his own selfish desires. The madman had nearly ripped apart reality in his lust for power, and it wasn't just Knuckles who had defeated Robotnik. He had discovered 2 enemies turned allies in his quest. They had helped him, trusted him, saved his life, and fought side by side with him at the end, and even though he had done nothing but attack them on sight since he arrived on this planet, yes. These 2, the fox and the hedgehog, were now his allies who now slept in this very attic with him. Knuckles uttered a sharp sigh. Sleep was something that seemed both a need and an annoyance. During his years on the hunt for clues to the Master Emerald's whereabouts, Knuckles had tuned his body for survival. His senses heightened, and any hint of danger would energize him, ready to fight, to live. As a result, he slept lightly, waking at any sound that might indicate an attack. And when you're the greatest warrior in the galaxy, there were always attacks, always someone who thought taking you down would boost their position. Sleep was dangerous. Sleeping for too long, or too deep, left you vulnerable. His wish to find the emerald and restore honor to his fallen tribe had given him the strength to triumph over all challenges, to keep moving, to ignore the pain and exhaustion, to survive. Having possession of the Master Emerald didn't stop his feeling of obligation. He sat awake for hours at night, alert to any possible attack by those who would want it for themselves. Surely the final battle had attracted attention. There are those who also wished for the gem, for reasons not as noble as his. As a side quest, he felt the need to protect those who had helped him and taken him in after the battle. These humans had opened their home to him, and the hedgehog and fox had risked their lives in the attacks on the insane Dr. Gunt robot. If the hedgehog had not used the power of the chosen emeralds to defeat their enemy, they all would have likely been killed. So Knuckles sat awake, night after night, watching and listening for any signs of danger. He wandered the house, inspecting doors and windows for signs of tampering or weakness. He walked the perimeter of the house and yard at senses tuned to any hint of attack. The human's pet would sometimes accompany him, and he would stroke the animal's fur as he had seen the others do. The dog seemed to like it, and it did help Knuckles feel less alone. The animal in question padded up the stairs now.
Why must you greet me in such a way?
He asked, his voice rougher than usual. He swallowed and grimaced, add a scratchy throat to his throbbing head.
Be dog beast.
The dog offered a single bark, and Knuckles uttered a pained grunt. His head was getting worse. Maybe some food would help. Dog and Echidna descended the attic stairs, although one moved much quicker than the other. Knuckles walked heavily, his footsteps echoing off the wooden floors of the empty hall. Each thud drew a corresponding one from his head. Downstairs he heard voices, the woman Hedgehog, and Fox. His feet slowed as he moved down the stairs, ears turned to their conversation.
I can't wait to try Mr. Benedict's deep-fried Snickers,
Sonic said, and Knuckles could imagine him bouncing as he did when excited.
I've seen them every year and always wanted to know what they tasted like.
Will there really be a fireworks show?
Tails asked.
I've never seen one before.
Totally Littleboro.
The Hedgehog replied.
Every year they have this big display. It's the best part.
I'm bringing a blanket and some glow sticks.
Maddie said.
We'll pick a good spot and you will be able to watch them without hiding in the trees this time.
Sonic gave a little squeal.
Oh, this is going to be so awesome.
Knuckles sighed, rubbing his temple. Today was Green Hills Day, an annual celebration for the town's founding. The Hedgehog had been raving about it for the past week. He'd watched the celebration from the outskirts for as long as he'd been hiding here, and was overjoyed to actually be joining the festivities this year. An added cause for celebration was the second defeat of Robotnik on the outskirts of town. Cleanup was technically still ongoing. The government was slowly dismantling and carting away pieces of the Ghent robot, but Green Hills residents had all jumped in to repair the damage done to the town itself. Today was a celebration not only for the town's founding, but also its spirit and determination to stick together and look after each other. Days ago, Knuckles had enjoyed the Hedgehog's infectious excitement. Now he felt, well, he wasn't exactly sure how he felt. Off, antsy, but sluggish. Perhaps it was due to the sudden change in his focus. Earth didn't seem as kill or be killed as most other planets he had been to. And over the past few days he felt as though his senses were dulling. He had never stayed in one place so long without having to fight for his life. It was an odd feeling, and this headache refused to go away. Everything seemed too bright, too loud. The Echidna stopped at the foot of the stair. A sudden dizzy spell had spun the room around him. He closed his eyes tightly and put a hand against the wall to steady himself. Once the feeling had passed, he shook his head slightly and moved into the kitchen.
Hey, there he is.
Maddie said, offering him a warm smile.
I was about to send a search party for you, sleepyhead.
Totally nuts.
Sonic said, zipping over to his side and resting an elbow on his shoulder.
You don't want to sleep the day away. We've got games to play, food to eat, and people to see.
Knuckles grunted in response and brushed the Hedgehog's arm away.
Must you be so loud?
He walked to the fridge, pulled out a box of grape juice, and downed half in one gulp.
It's as if you exist merely to make noise.
Well, sorry.
Sonic exclaimed, throwing his hands in the air.
Pardon me for being excited about actually being in the middle of the action for once in my life.
Sonic, bring it down a notch, okay?
Maddie said, handing Knuckles a raisin muffin. He picked at it half-heartedly. She turned back to her blue sun.
Why don't you and Tails take the cooler to the car?
Fine.
Hedgehog and Fox each took one handle of the cooler.
I'm not letting Mr. Cranky ruin my day. I've been waiting for this all year.
They walked out the back door, letting it slam behind them. Knuckles flinched at the sound. Maddie glanced down at the Echidna.
Another headache.
He curled his lip. No, the same one, actually.
Maybe I'm just not in the mood for loud, annoying hedgehogs.
How much sleep did you get last night?
Knuckles shrugged.
Someone has to defend this house at night. The Master Emerald holds great power, and there are many who would like to have it. It is my duty to keep it safe.
Yes, I get that, and I think it's very honorable you have taken that risk. But you were just one person. You can't do it alone.
And who will help? The hedgehog, the fox? They are children, more interested in playing childish games than taking on a responsibility this important and sacred.
Hey, we're not that much younger than you know.
Sonic said as he and Tails returned.
We all made a pact to keep that emerald safe, remember, but yes, we like to have fun. Something you don't seem to understand.
I had no time for fun. I spent my entire life fighting.
Knuckles said, stepping forward to go nose to nose with the hedgehog. His temper was short these days, always ready to jump to the fore. Had it momentarily forgotten, the Echidna felt his will stiffen.
Something you don't seem to understand. I was constantly on the move, searching for the emerald, fighting to survive, staying one step ahead of any who would destroy me. If I let my guard down for even a moment, I would have been killed.
But no one's after you here.
Tails offered with a small smile.
From what I can tell, Earth is pretty removed from the rest of the galaxy. The Emerald are safe.
Safe.
The Echidna turned on the fox, his muzzle pulled into a snarl. Tails shrank away.
There is no such thing. There will always be enemies, always be those who want what you have, and are not afraid to do what they need to take it.
He leaned closer.
Do you think you could stop anyone if they chose to come after you, little fox?
Tails whimpered, wrapping himself in his namesakes.
Hey, back off.
Sonic said, stepping between them and giving the Echidna a shove.
You've been a major crank for the past couple of days. All broody, moody, and antisocial. It's like you're looking for a fight. And if that's what it will take to snap you out of this attitude, I'll give you one.
Nobu's come on.
Maddie said, reaching between the two to separate them.
Don't start this.
He's starting it, not me.
Sonic said, pointing at Knuckles.
Tell him to knock it off.
Sonic, stop. Knuckles, I understand where you were coming from. I do had a very hard and dangerous life, but things are different here. You don't have to be so on edge all the time.
Knuckles shook his head, his fists clenched. They didn't understand, couldn't understand.
The only reason I'm still alive is because I've had to fight every moment of every day. The only one I could rely on was myself, no one else.
But you don't have to live like that anymore.
Sonic cried, throwing his arms wide.
You're here, thus let us help you.
I don't need your help.
Knuckles yelled, the pain in his head flaring. So-called allies were only enemies in disguise. He realized it now. This was a trick. They were making him weak, fooling him with their friendliness and kindness. They would turn on him soon enough and take the Master Emerald for themselves, and man did his head hurt.
You are trying to trick me.
He growled, pounding his fists together. Red sparks crackled between them, and Sonic jumped in front of Maddie.
Mom, get Tails out of here.
The hedgehog said, his own blue sparks starting.
I don't know what his problem is, but hey?
Both Hedgehog and Echidna cried out in surprise as Maddie sprayed them with a squirt bottle.
Knock it off, both of you.
She said, giving them a few more sprays. The sudden interruption was enough to shock both of them out of their power-up cycle, and they looked at her with annoyance.
Mom, what the heck?
Sonic cried, grabbing a nearby hand towel to dry himself.
How dare you, woman?
Knuckles snarled, baring his teeth at her.
I'm the greatest warrior in the galaxy, last of the Echidnas, sworn protector of the Master Emerald.
And I'm the mother of this house, healer of boo-boos, and referee in Superboy fights.
She cried, standing tall and staring the Echidna down.
And I will not allow you two to go all smackdown Sparky fight in my kitchen, right before we are supposed to meet Tom in town. Got it?
Knuckles growled, but the sound was hollow and far away in his own ears. His head swam.
Red, you have been acting odd for days.
she said, going to a knee before him.
Tell us what's wrong. Let us help.
I don't.
The room spun around him once more. His head pounded, the edges of his vision blurring to darkness.
Well,
The Echida's fists dropped, and he fell forward. The last thing he saw before darkness took him were the shocked faces of the other three in the kitchen. He was out cold before he fell limp into Medi's arms. Darkness, voices, where was he? What planet? He could remember. He was on his back, something soft beneath him. Drugged, he clenched and unclenched his fists. His fingers felt exposed and naked. His gloves were missing. He curled his toes. They moved freely. Boots were gone too. Captured, he shivered. Freezing, his head was fuzzy. Faces, places, and names blurred together. What was happening? He opened his eyes. Light and blurry images assaulted his still throbbing head. He closed them again.
what?
He croaked, and his throat burned. He called.
Hush.
A voice soothed, female, above him.
You have a fever.
A cool, damp cloth rested on his forehead.
Throat hurts.
He said, grimacing, felt as though he had swallowed a cactus.
Here,
A warm hand slid beneath him to help him sit up.
drink.
A small soft tube slid between his lips. He sucked, pulling cool water into his mouth. He swished it twice before swallowing. It helped his throat. He drank more.
So how's he doing now?
A different voice, male, further away.
I'm gonna try to get some medicine into him. He's burning up.
The female, a healer.
Here you go.
A new voice, younger, moved fast.
Thanks, kiddo.
A pause.
Come on, big guy.
The straw was taken away. Something new bumped against his lip, then and middle.
Thin up.
He did, and a foul liquid splashed over his tongue. He swallowed, then caught.
Ah,
His throat burned once more.
I know it doesn't taste very good, sweetie, but it should help.
The straw reappeared. He drank, eager to wash the other taste from his mouth.
Get some rest.
The straw withdrew. The hand on his back lowered him to the softness beneath. He shivered. A cover appeared under his chin. He rolled to his side, curling up for warm darkness. Images, dreams, memories, blurred together. He was home. His father and the other warriors trained in the yard. He watched, copying their movements, studying them. He was too young to train yet, father had said. So he watched and practiced. When his time to train did come, he would be ready. He was the youngest in the village, the only child, but he was a warrior. He would be the greatest warrior. He knew it in his heart. His mother called, and he ran to her, the village healer. She was sick. None of her potions or herbs could stop her cough. It got worse each day. He wished he could fight it for her, protect her, save her.
Mother?
Movement to his right. Someone was near.
Shush.
Female, and
You're safe.
a hand on his forehead, gently caressing.
Where?
Safe. I won't let anything happen to you.
He believed her. He slept. He was older, training now, but still too young to march with the others. They had found the owl. It knew where the Master Emerald was. They would make it tell them. All the warriors went. Few came back. His father was not with them. No healer, no leader. So he trained with memories. Every minute, he would survive. Alone now, all others gone. Just him. His quest begins. He will find what was lost. He threw a ring. A new image flashed. Memory, an enemy, fists at the ready. No, holding out an open hand, smiling.
You don't have to be alone anymore.
He calmed. The hands released him.
alone.
Not a chance.
The voice was smiling.
I'm staying right here.
He sighed, slept. Voices again. music. The pounding in his head had faded. His throat felt dry, but the scratchy cactus feeling was gone. He dared to open his eyes. A white ceiling hung above him. Light shone from his right, and he turned his head. The TV. He glanced down and found Sonic sitting cross-legged on the floor, a Nintendo Switch controller in his hands, a carrot stick poking out of his mouth. He munched on the carrot and worked his thumbs over the control stick. Knuckles looked around the rest of the living room. He lay on the couch, directly across the room from the TV. Ozzy was asleep under the coffee table, and Maddie sat in the armchair to his upper right. She had a crossword puzzle in her lap, but absently chewed her pen as she watched Sonic play. He could see into the dining room, where Tails and Tom sat at the table, chatting lightly and working on a Lego project together.
You gonna try for that tower again?
Maddie asked, her voice soft.
Thinking about it.
The hedgehog replied. His voice was just as soft, and now that Knuckles thought about it, the volume on the TV was also fairly low.
I don't know how to get it, though. Zlizofos and Wizrobes always zap me when I get close.
If you go around to the right, you will find a spot where there's a bigger gap in the Wizrobe spectral pattern.
The woman said, fishing a carrot stick out of the little bowl on the coffee table. She took a bite and pointed toward Sonic.
You will have to go slow and take out the Lizalfos one at a time to make your way across the water.
He gave a soft chuckle.
Go slow. Have you met me?
She smiled.
Yes, I know, but if you want to open this tower, you can't do your normal speed run thing, not without getting your butt zapped a bunch of times.
She took another bite.
And I hated this tower. I think it's the worst one.
Worse than the one with the Guardians around the bottom.
She waved a hand.
That one's easy when you know how to approach it. This one is a pain.
As Sonic made his way to the tower in question, Knuckles turned back to stare at the ceiling, his hands curled into fists. Clutching the blanket covering him, he glanced down and discovered he was under the quilt Maddie's grandmother had made, the one she referred to as the feel-better blanket. He had seen it in action multiple times over the past month, as everyone in the family had passed around an illness that Maddie referred to as a summer cold. It apparently caused fevers, scratchy throats, and stuffy heads. Tom had gotten sick first, then Sonic, then Tails. Each time someone got sick, Maddie made up the couch and covered them with this quilt. It was a special ritual, one Sonic seemed especially fond of. If you were on the couch under this special covering, Maddie made it her sole focus to tend to you and nurse you back to health. And now he was under this sacred quilt. Had Maddie cared for him as she had her own family? Sonic suddenly pumped a fist in the air.
Yes!
He hissed as he completed the tower and opened a new area on his game map.
Thanks for the tip, Mom.
Anytime, kiddo.
She glanced to her left and noticed Knuckles awake.
Hey, big guy, welcome back.
The hedgehog spun around, his face stretching into a smile.
Knux, good to see you, Oik.
There was a clattering of chair legs as Tom and Tails hurried into the room, wearing identical smiles.
How are you feeling better, my man? You're worried about you.
Tom asked as Maddie moved to sit on the edge of the couch near Knuckles' legs. Tails climbed into the chair Maddie vacated.
Hey, Knuckles, I'm glad you're feeling better.
The Echidna felt his muzzle burn at being the center of such attention. He sat up as Maddie placed a gentle hand on his forehead.
What happened?
You passed out.
She said, a small smile curling the corners of her lips.
Scared the heck out of us.
She pulled her hand back.
Your fever's gone, and you are no longer delirious, so that's good.
Why was I unconscious?
Well, best as I can figure, you finally got nailed with that cold we've all been passing around.
And you were probably suffering from exhaustion from your years of being constantly on the move. Add that to the fact that you weren't sleeping much lately, and it all finally got to be too much for your body.
Tails added.
In other words,
Sonic said, crossing his arms.
you were too much of a knucklehead to slow down and get some rest, so your body did it for you.
Knuckles looked down at the quilt covering him. A thought occurred to him and he looked out the window. Night had fallen.
Can we still make it to the fireworks show?
Sonic and Maddie exchanged a glance. The hedgehog cleared his throat.
There weren't any fireworks tonight.
Knuckles wrinkled his brow.
You said they have a fireworks show after every celebration.
Yes, I did.
Sonic said. The Echidna shook his head.
Last night.
You've been asleep for nearly 32 hours, Red.
Maddie said.
We couldn't leave you like this, so we didn't go.
Knuckles stared at her for a second as what she said sank in. 32 hours? Didn't go? None of them, after how excited Sonic was to attend.
None of you went.
He looked from one face to another. Each wore a small smile.
But, Sheriff Tom, you are the protector of this town. You must have gone.
The man shook his head.
Family emergency, everyone understood.
Family emergency,
Sonic,
the Echidna said, turning his attention to the hedgehog.
this was all you spoke of for a week. Annoyingly so, you are finally going to eat a Fred candy bar. Play the games. Why would you miss that?
The boy shrugged.
Because someone I care about was really sick. I couldn't leave while you were so out of it.
Knuckles furrowed his brow.
But this was important to you, and I was being a major crank. Why would you stay?
Sonic gave him a kind smile. Important family, safe. The last word glared at him, like a bonfire in the night. Safe. For the first time in a long, long time, he finally and truly felt safe.
I'm sorry you missed your celebration.
He said quietly, his eyes still glued to the quilt. He clutched it in his fists tightly.
But I'm honored you stayed with me during my time of weakness. Thank you.
The four beings surrounding him said nothing for a moment. Then Sonic moved closer.
What are families for?
He said, smiling. He held out a fist.
Now just promise you will stop all this lone wolf. I'll almost carry this burden stuff. It's really annoying and interferes with you learning how to chill out and have fun. We can do this together. We all want to keep that emerald safe, you know.
Knuckles looked up into the eyes of the hedgehog. No, of his friend, brother. He glanced around at the others, who, one by one, held their fist out. He smiled and lifted his fist to complete the circle.
Powerbomb.
Because you're important to me, you knucklehead. My family is important to me. More important than some junk food or games. There's always next year.
He said.
I swear.
Yes!
Sonic said, his face breaking into a wide grin.
The Wachowski family back in action.
Tom called as he headed toward the kitchen.
What would you like?
Knuckles thought for a moment.
You hungry, big guy?
Me.
Tom gave him a thumbs up.
I'll come to that. Come right up, boys. I'll give your old man a hand as we get some grub for the mighty kidney who defeated Great Ellis.
The Echidna chuckled as the tray moved to the kitchen. Maddie placed a gentle hand on his head.
You had me worried for a while there, you know. You were pretty out of it.
She said quietly.
I dreamt of my mother and father.
He said, secretly liking the gentle pressure of her hand on him.
They were a great warrior and skilled healer, much like you and your husband. You remind me of them.
She smiled.
I'm honored. They must have been great to have such a wonderful son.
He gave a curt nod.
They always protected those they cared about.
I think they would be very proud of the person you became.
Maddie said, striking his quills to move her hand to his shoulder.
You are a very brave and honorable warrior.
And you are a skilled and kind healer.
He said, lowering his head in a short bow.
I thank you for tending to me.
We all took turns sitting with you. No one wanted to leave you alone, and I did the best I could. They don't exactly cover alien echidnas in veterinary school, you know.
She said, before giving him a raised eyebrow. He paused. The words soaked into Knuckles' brain like water in a sponge. Family, important. He was important to these people. They had missed out on a fun celebration to look after him. They had sacrificed their plans, their time, to care for him. He blinked, dropping his gaze to the quilt covering him. Its patchwork of colors and patterns seemed so different, yet all came together to make something beautiful, something special, each piece different, yet each piece vital and important to the overall whole. It seemed a perfect symbol for the five of them. Something nagged at him from the back of his mind. Words formed, words he had rejected a lifetime ago, words he never thought he'd use to in reference to himself again.
You scared the crap out of me when you passed out. Next time, just tell me you were not feeling good before you get to that point, okay?
He smiled.
Agreed.
Good.
She leaned forward and kissed his forehead.
You're still gonna need to rest, but maybe you should run to the bathroom. I'm gonna check to make sure the boys aren't going nuts with food.
He nodded, and she gave him another smile as she stood and walked toward the kitchen.
It's nothing major.
He said, taking a seat across from him. 20 minutes later, Knuckles slid onto a chair at the dining table. Tom had moved the Lego pieces to one side and set a plate in front of the Echidna.
But I think it better to have something a little more gentle for your stomach right now. You're only up have a barbecue with some big old slabs of meat.
Knuckles nodded, a small smile on his muzzle.
I will enjoy these smashed potatoes and nuggets of chicken, thank you, Goose.
He picked up a fork and stabbed a nugget. As he brought it to his mouth, he paused.
Something wrong.
The Echidna looked up into the faces of his new friends. Now that the worst of his illness had passed, he felt different. New words flooded in his mind. Calm, accepted, cared for, happy.
You are my new tribe. My family, I pledge my to yours. I will fight to the death to protect you, all of you.
He said, looking at each of them in turn.
My elders,
He looked to Sonic and Tails.
my brothers, as long as I draw breath, I will keep you safe. You have my word.
He looked between Maddie and Tom. The family looked between each other for a moment before Tom spoke. Tails giggled at that, followed by Sonic and Maddie. Soon the entire family was laughing, Knuckles included, breaking the serious tone of the moment.
Geez, Nux, it's just chicken nuggets. I need to go overboard.
Seriously, Nux?
Sonic said, draping an arm across his shoulders.
We all really appreciate the sentiment. That really means a lot coming from you. We love you. You're big lug, and you will always be a member of the Wachowski family.
But for now.
Maddie said, leading Sonic and Tails into the living room.
You eat while it's still warm, then I'll tuck you back in on the couch. You still need to rest.
All kidding aside.
He said joyfully as Knuckles finished off the nuggets.
I'm glad you've chosen to stand down and you accepted us as your tribe.
You are an honorable warrior.
The Echidna said, pointing at Tom with his fork.
You bravely protect your family and home, and your jokes are quite funny too.
Knuckles, don't encourage him.
Maddie called from the living room. Tom smirked.
Don't listen to her, she's just jealous.
Your wife is also an important asset to this family.
Knuckles said, raising his voice dramatically.
Quit sucking up and eat.
She called back, but there was laughter in her voice.
Or I won't let you pick tonight's movie.
Oh, you better do as she says.
Tom said, ducking his head low.
Let me know if you want some more.
He offered the Echidna a quick wink before moving into the living room. Knuckles watched him though, scooping some mashed potatoes into his mouth. He smiled. Not a bad place to call home. Later, the family gathered in the living room to watch Guardians of the Galaxy. Knuckles snuggled back on the couch, tucked beneath the feel-better blanket, with Maddie and Tom. Sonic and Tails lay on the floor, munching on popcorn.
These people are completely unprepared for any serious kind of galactic protection.
Tails noted.
They're unorganized and completely chaotic. I mean, come on. The only halfway smart one is the raccoon. He should be in charge.
I don't know.
Sonic said, tossing some popcorn to Ozzy.
Quill, great name by the way. Seems like a pretty good hero type to me. Dashing and knows how to have fun.
I personally like Drax.
Knuckles said.
A brave warrior, fighting to destroy an evil enemy, seeking those who caused the death of his family. What more noble reason does one need?
Gamora is smart and kicks butt.
Maddie said.
So wise and full of kindness.
Knuckles nodded, popping the nugget on his fork into his mouth. Maddie and the other boys sat in the living room, while Tom stayed where he was, watching the Echidna continue to eat.
She's the one who should be in charge.
I like Groot,
Tom said, shaking his head.
but his performance seems a little winning.
The Echidna chuckled, the woman hedgehog, and Fox groaned.
Well, at least one person in this family enjoys my dad jokes.
Knuckles smiled. It felt good to be part of a tribe once more, after all those years of chasing after information on the Emerald, fighting to survive, and never knowing what the next danger might be. It felt nice to be able to sit and relax with people you could trust, really trust. He knew, deep in his heart, that everyone in this family would fight with him, for him, if necessary. They all carried the heart of a warrior within them. Sleep didn't seem so unpleasant to him now, and the weight of his duty to protect the Master Emerald no longer seemed so heavy.